Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. I figured we would go live again. So I'm just gonna post this. Um, we'll talk about the Fed and everything. So all right, all right. So I suppose we are coming up on the Fed meeting in just a little bit. If you're not familiar, this is essentially when Bitcoin goes into I shouldn't say Bitcoin. When the economy goes into a recession, we normally have the Federal Reserve to thank because of quantitative tightening, a hard landing, just in general a very hawkish Fed. And of course, they like to say that they will avoid a hard landing. But if history is any indication, normally we in fact do have a hard landing, as we've been experiencing over the last several months. Now, we are, I suppose we're about to find out if in fact they are going to raise rates by 50 basis points, which in general was what was expected, and that's what has been communicated. Recently, though, with the inflation data coming in at 8.6% year over year, there have been a lot of people that are now assuming that the Fed will in fact raise by 75 basis points as opposed to 50. I think we should. I believe we're gonna know here at the top of the hour. I could be wrong about that, but it should be coming out relatively soon. And so I'm doing a live stream because I'm expecting some volatility. Okay. Now I'm not really sure the best way to interpret all of it. Um, According to half of the people, it seems like the market's pricing in a 75% basis point rate hike. Um, the other half assumes it's going to be 50 basis points, and it's probably going to be one of the two. I know some people are even calling for 100 and whatnot, but I really doubt they would go that high. So it's probably either going to be 50 or 75 basis points. And again, the reason why this is important to you as people interested potentially in crypto is that the Fed will continue to do this. They will continue very likely to raise interest rates as long as inflation's going up. And until inflation gets under control, as we've shown many times, if we sort of just look at the inflation data, if this actually loads. So if you look at inflation data, you can see in the 1970s and also in the 1940s, as long as inflation was going up, the S&P had not yet bottomed. And whether we like it or not, Bitcoin has shown a very significant correlation with the S&P, especially over the last 6 months. So I think it's safe to assume that as long as inflation's going higher, we should not yet assume that the S&P 500 is bottomed. And as long as inflation's going higher, the Fed will continue to raise interest rates. So this is how it affects you, right? As long as they're raising interest rates, or as long as inflation's going up, they will likely continue to raise interest rates, and it will put downward pressure on financial markets. So, I am expecting some volatility here relatively soon. We'll see which way it goes. One of the things we've seen actually happen a lot in the past is that there's a fake out. Usually it goes one direction and then it goes back the other direction. So I suppose if it's 50 basis points, a lot of people might assume that we would see some relief back up to the upside if 75 basis points has been priced in. If 75 basis points is what happens, then I don't know if I really don't know exactly what to expect, honestly. I mean, I just think we're going to have a lot of volatility here. coming up relatively soon. We're currently sitting below $21,000. So hopefully we'll get some positive news and we'll go back to the upside. All right, we can see if there's any questions. Why is inflation rising and the dollar getting stronger? Well, remember the dollar is getting stronger, not necessarily because not it's not getting stronger, directly because of inflation, but I mean a lot of other currencies are very weak right now, and the dollar is just it's basically a measure of the value of the U.S. dollar compared to a weighted basket of other currencies. So a lot of other currencies are getting weaker, and I think the reason you're also seeing the dollar go up, it sort of all ties together, right? Inflation is going up, therefore the Fed's raising interest rates, and because inflation's going up and the Fed is hawkish, people are flocking out of risk on assets back to cash. This is why we said before, in a bear market, in a Bitcoin bear market, cash is king. And so dollars are, I mean, despite the fact that we have inflation, right, dollars are relatively scarce because a lot of people are flocking back to US dollars. I mean, they're not really, really scarce. I'm not trying to say like US dollars are scarce per se, but it's just that there's a lot of demand recently for US dollars, not only because other currencies have been relatively weak, which is one measure of it, but I think because people have left a lot of risk assets for the relative safety of the US dollar. And you might say, well, how is the US dollar safe if we just have, 8.6% year over year inflation? But if the other alternative is watching your portfolio drop 80%, you can understand why people might just sit out in cash for a while until the bear market blows over. So what do you guys think it's going to be? What do you think the Fed's raising interest rates by? 25, 50? Can I do polls over here or no? Create a poll. How much Fed raise interest rates? 25 basis points. I'm gonna create I've never done a YouTube poll before. This will be interesting. All right, I just put a poll out. We'll see what you guys think. We'll see what maybe the market is pricing in. What do you think? Looks like 58% of people are thinking 75 basis point rate hike. %3 say 25 basis points, 32 say 50, 10% say 100. Yeah, it's probably not going to be 25 or 100 is my guess. It's likely either going to be 50 or 75. I do think one of the problems with it being 75 is if it is 75, then how do we trust what the Fed says? Well, how do we trust what they say anyways, right? I mean, again, like inflation is transitory. That's what they told us once upon a time. So you can't really trust that regardless, but if they do come out with a 75 basis point rate hike, that goes against what they said they were going to do, which was 50. So from a communication perspective, 50 basis points would likely be better, just to stick with what they said. From an actual tackling the inflation problem, 75 basis points would actually be better. However, I think there's also a real argument to be made that inflation isn't just going to be solved by raising interest rates, but it's also it's also caused by other things going on in the world, like the war, and just supply chain issues, right? Strain on the supply chain, and that has certainly contributed to inflation. So yeah, it looks like we're coming in with 3,000 votes right now, and it looks like 55% of you guys think 75 basis points. So you could make the argument that 75 basis point rate hike has been priced in already. And if it's less than that, then perhaps we'll see some volatility back up to the upside. By the way, if you guys are new here, make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed, and please give the video a thumbs up. Yeah, I know the Fed said they won't do more than 50. Again, I'm expecting 50 just because that's what they said. But if they do 75, then I'm not sure how we're going to believe any of their future projections on what the rate hikes would be if they're just going to throw some curveballs. What do I think about the Bitcoin rainbow chart? We'll talk about that in a future video. Actually, I just made a video on a lot of different indicators, and then I realized my face was in the bottom right hand portion of the screen, so like all the significant charts were cut off. I keep forgetting that in a bear market you need to see the bottom right part of the screen, and in a bull market you need to see the top right part of the screen. So maybe that's how you'll know if I think we're in a bull market or a bear market. In a bear market I should put my face at the top right, and in a bull market I should put it at the bottom right. When do advertisements on this channel? Hopefully never. I mean, the bear market might be difficult, but it's not difficult to the point that we're going to put ads on here. All right, we're at 55% of people now thinking 75 basis point rate hike. I think it's coming in here in just about 8 minutes, right? We're having the press or the report. All right, we're currently coming in at 20,762. Let me see. Let me pull up the Fed website, federalreserve.gov, if you're unfamiliar. I don't see anything released yet, so we'll see. We'll check back in about 8 minutes and see if anything has been released and what the market's going to do. You know, if you look at a lot of indicators, we are very much oversold. In bear markets, you know, these things can, of course, go down much more than you want. But, you know, on the weekly RSI, Bitcoin is more oversold than it's ever been, actually, which is significant. You know, I mean, it's a significant thing. The weekly RSI is at 26. Hell, the monthly RSI is more oversold than it's ever been before, currently coming in at around 42 or so, right? 42. So I know a lot of people would like some relief in these markets, but again, we'll have to see what the Fed does. Remember, they say don't fight the Fed. If the Fed is, when the Fed is hawkish, like they have been for the last 6 months or so, you should expect bear market, right? You should expect a bear market, and that generally has played out. Whenever the Fed pivots, which they'll pivot one day, even though it might not feel like it right now, it just feels like this is going to go on forever, and it could go on for quite some time. We'll pivot one day and we'll go back to risk on. It has not happened yet, but I think today is not like a distinguishing factor between, say, like macro risk on or risk off. It's more of are we going to see some short-term volatility back up to the upside, or will they come in and surprise us with a higher rate hike than a lot of people are expecting? Yeah, I'm not sure. Does anyone know what time they're giving the press conference? I've seen some mixed things. I saw a lot of suggestions where people were saying the statement would be released at 2 Eastern, which is in 6 minutes, but I'm not 100% sure if that's accurate. Someone says the 300-week moving average will be the bottom. Yeah, it's possible. We have been to the 300-week before. So the last time we were at the 300-week was, in fact, in March of 2020. All right, we're back above 21K. Let's see if we can get some of that volatility back up to the upside. I don't believe the Fed has said anything yet, but I imagine investors will speculate, or I should say speculators will speculate, right? I think it would be nice for us to at least get back above the 200-week SMA by the weekly close. Would be nice. All right, we're at 21.4. Let's see. I think it's coming in 5 minutes now, so we'll see what the Fed is going to do. Ether Bitcoin has still been wrecked, absolutely wrecked, which is likely the direction it's going for a while, like the Ether Bitcoin valuation. So I generally would expect this to continue going down. Not necessarily monotonically, but something I think to anticipate is the Ether Bitcoin valuation further heading down. And really, we want to see the Bitcoin dominance go up. Listen, this is what we've talked about relief rallies in the past. Like I clearly, I don't know exactly when it's going to occur, But whenever it does occur, you want to see the Bitcoin dominance go up. Well, at least I do. I think it'll be the sign of the market maturing and getting to a healthier state. I know the Bitcoin dominance has recently fallen off a cliff, but hopefully it can get back on track relatively soon. All right, we got, what, 4 minutes now? By the way, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe if you are not subscribed, and give the video a thumbs up. Yeah, actually, if you want to look at the rainbow, this is what it looks like. I was actually looking at this earlier, and it really it has, one of the things we said back in 2019 is that every peak tends to be 2.5 log lines down, right, from the last one. And then yet again, we went up to only 2 log lines down, but actually at the peak, which was at a lower regression band, it was actually 2.5 again. But the first bear market, occurred all the way in this one down here. The second one was on the same one, I believe, the same regression band. The third one was on this sort of like blue one, which is the same one where the fourth one took place. Now we're back there. You can actually already see we're below. So if we fall another one, you can see that would be where our ultimate destination is. I guess the question is are we going to go straight there, or will we see some type of relief in the short term? But yeah, that is the regression rainbow that someone was asking about. And actually, with respect to the logarithmic regression bands, you can see we're back into our lower regression band, fit to, again, quote unquote, non-bubble data. We are below the fair value now. We've been below it many times in the past, so it's not, it's nothing new. It's just currently where we sit. All right, it's 1:57 Eastern. I don't see anything yet. Let me know if I miss anything and if they've announced it. It looks like 75 basis points is still in the lead at 54% of people with about 7,000 votes. I suppose 50, more than half of you guys are thinking it's going to be 75 basis points. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end that poll. Yeah, like from a technical perspective, look, guys, you guys know we have a 1,000 different indicators, right? From a technical perspective, some, but not all indicators have bottomed, right? Some of them have, based on what has historically happened, but not all of them. So, the risk is there. Of course, all markets have a risk. I think the most difficult thing from a macro perspective, whether we bounce in the short term or not, is relevant. From a macro perspective, we're still fighting high inflation for a while. So, that's something we have to deal with regardless of what happens today or next week. But we'll see what happens. We're currently sitting at around $21,000, and I think it's 1:59. So I'm checking their website to see if they have any updates. Yeah, I'm looking at their website on my other screen. I have 2 monitors, not 3 monitors. At some point, you get diminishing returns with monitors and their usefulness. But it looks like, okay, it's 1:59. We're sitting at 21K. All right, I would expect some volatility here coming in on the top of the hour. Yeah, inflation's nothing new, but this is as high as inflation's been in a long time. So it's new for crypto, right? Like the level of inflation is new for crypto. Like since crypto's been around, inflation has not been this high. But yeah, we've had high inflation before. We had it in the 70s, we had it in the 40s. That is not new. All right, it is 2. So I will let you guys know if I see anything coming out. Oh, is it 2:30? Someone said it was at 2:30. 30 more minutes? Well, that's when the press conference is. Do they sometimes release the statement ahead of time? Yeah, they just released the statement. Oh, wait. It says page not found. Hold on. I know Oh, is it 75? I'm trying to load it, but I guess everyone's trying to load it right now. All right, is everyone's saying 75? All right, well, let's see if we get some volatility. We're currently at 21K. Um, yeah, I mean I wasn't planning on staying on live for the entire thing. I was just gonna stay on until, okay, here's the PDF. Oh, some people voted against it. Yeah, I can put it on the sorry. Let me try to move this over. Okay, so here's the statement. So yeah, it was released at 2. Overall economic activity appears to have picked up. The invasion of Ukraine by Russia is causing tremendous human and economic hardship. The invasion and related events are creating additional upward pressure on inflation. Kennedy decided to raise the target range from the federal fund rate to 1.5 to 1.75%. Okay, so yeah, it was at 75 to 100. And anticipates that ongoing increases in the target range will be appropriate. In addition, the committee will, well, let me see, what is Bitcoin doing? Bitcoin's still at 20.8. In addition, the committee will continue reducing its holdings of treasury securities and agency debt. We knew that. They're not going to, they're going to let the bonds go to maturity and not do anything. Yeah, I saw the voting for the Monte actions where, okay, so that was voting for, voting against, who preferred at this meeting to raise it by 0.5% to 1 1/4% to 1 1/2. Okay, so Esther George voted to do it by half, up 50 basis points. But it looks like a lot of people voted for the 75. So it is in fact 75. You know, thus again calling into question, how do we trust what the Fed's going to say if they say 50 basis points and then do it 75. So, you know, at the press conference, you know, when inevitably they're questioned about this, it's going to make you wonder, okay, well, how do we trust what they say next time? Like if they say it's going to be 50 or 75 next month, how can you put so much faith in that if they are just going to change it? So yeah, there was one person that dissented. Yeah, I get it. 75 basis points. I saw. So it looks like the majority was correct. 75 basis point rate hike. Over 50% of you thought it would be 75. So yeah, you know, I think, I mean, I suppose the market had priced in 75. Again, majority of people thought 75, and the price has actually not moved. I suppose if it had been 50, we might have seen some relief back up to the upside, but that has not yet occurred. So, wow, we have over 12,000 people watching. I don't think we had this many people even at the height of the bull market. If you're not subscribed, make sure you guys subscribe. Yeah, we're not going to stay on for the actual press conference because I'll just want to listen to it on my own without doing it in front of 12,000 people. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what Bitcoin does here because it's now coming in at 20.5K, which is, you know, if you look at some of the indicators that we've looked at before, you know, we are getting into some better value. We also do know that, you know, the 300 week has been hit once before. And the last time that was hit was in March of 2020. So we'll see if we make it there or not. All right, you guys want me to answer any questions before we head out? Yeah, I mean, we can look at a couple different indicators if you guys want. What do you guys want to see? Do I look at the dollar? Yeah, I mean, so look, guys, the dollar is continuing to go up. So this is what I keep saying, right? The dollar's at 105.6. And I want to show something here. So the dollar is in this sort of like macro channel, right? And what's crazy about the US dollar currency index is, this was the 2017 bull market for Bitcoin. And this was the 2020 and early 2021 bull market for Bitcoin. When it goes up, we go into a bear market, right? Risk assets go into a bear market, and we are experiencing that right now. So as long as the dollar is in this parabolic rally that it's in, you should assume that Bitcoin is going to remain stuck in traffic on Struggle Street, right? That's just the case. It's going to stay stuck in traffic, and the dollar's likely going to continue rallying for a while until inflation potentially gets under control. And I know some people were hoping it would be under control, or that March or whatever would be the top at 8.5, but right back up to 8.6 2 months later. Yeah, I know Bitcoin has never really experienced a recession. That's why I do think people need to understand the macro. This is why we're talking about a lot of the macro on the channel. I've shown you guys, look at inflationary data, look at where the S&P bottomed the last time we had high inflation, right? This white line here is the inflation CPI. This is where we are today. This is where we were back in the 70s. And you can see the S&P did not bottom until inflation peaked, right? Until inflation peaked, the S&P simply did not bottom. And so that's why I'm saying, there's all sorts of indicators we can look at. There's all sorts of TA we can look at. But at the end of the day, you need to focus on the macro and saying, don't fight the Fed, right? If the Fed's going to keep raising interest rates like this into a slowing economy because they have to fight inflation, it is still going to put downward pressure on the S&P 500. Okay, so and you can see yet again, it wasn't until inflation peaked in 1974 during this first move up by inflation that the S&P bottomed. So that's what we're looking for right now. We can spend forever calling for bottoms and whatnot, but what you really want to look for is just look to see when inflation is more convincingly coming down, and that will likely be a more convincing story on marking a major bottom, not only for the stock market, but also for cryptocurrency as well. Well, especially Bitcoin, right? The reason why all this is important, of course, is because I understand that this market right now is very difficult on a lot of people, and a lot of people are hurting because of how much things have gone down. But remember, if you were to take a step back, the people that bought in this phase over here after after this major sell-off, look at the potential upside they had over the coming decades, right? Like you can see the potential upside. So, when sort of looking at today, yes, the current market conditions are awful, right? They're awful. And the S&P could easily drop further, right? It could easily end up dropping much further than it currently has. But the key thing to remember is that in bear markets, we know cash is king, and that it's the people that have the ability to buy down here once inflation has peaked that will ultimately do the best during the next bull market. So I know it's difficult. Try to hang in there, and try to remember YOLOing all your money on every altcoin dip is a great way to lose all your money. I don't know when we're going to have relief rallies, clearly, but whenever we do, try to maintain some discipline until we actually see inflation peaking year over year. Once that occurs, the Fed will then be able to sort of lay off this hawkish policy that they're on, and they can become a bit more dovish. So remember, don't fight the Fed is the mantra. All right, we're still above 20K. I mean, Bitcoin's still above 20K, so we'll continue to keep an eye on it, see what it's going to do. Currently sitting at 20,449. So, oh, by the way, from the all-time high, I suppose we are now down 70%, right? We're down 70% from the all-time high. A 75% move from the all-time high would put us down at around 17K. An 80% move would put us down at around 14K. So, so we're currently down 70% right now. And actually, we have a decent way to visualize this on the website. Let me see if I can find it. The price drawdown from the all-time high. So if I just pull that chart up, so you can kind of visualize where Bitcoin is in this bear market compared to prior bear markets. So, I mean, I get that Bitcoin has never really experienced a recession, and things could get worse, but even based on what we've seen in the past, you can see there's potentially more downside, even just based on what's previously happened when we didn't have recessions. So, anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Remember, if you guys want access to the website, we have the sale on intothe.cryptoverse.com, so feel free to check it out. Do you guys have any final questions? Someone says when sustainable 20K. Yeah, in 2019, I used to say it would take until the first quarter of 2022 to see a sustainable 20K. Here we are in the second quarter of 20. This was years ago, right? This was back in 2019. I said it would take until the first quarter of 2022 to see a sustainable 20K. And here we are in the second quarter of 2022 testing $20,000, with the potential to eventually drop below. So yes, the times have very much changed over the last several years. The RSI, yeah, like guys, we already spoke about the RSI. The RSI is more oversold on the weekly and monthly time frames than it's ever been. But again, you have to take into account, inflation and the Fed, and remembering that no amount of indicators will sort of override if the Fed is going to remain hawkish for a long time. So try to remember that. Wait, what did you guys? Someone asked me for something I was looking for. Now I don't remember what it was I was looking for. Oh, the RSI. Yeah, I mean, again, the RSI is more oversold right now than it's ever been on the weekly and the monthly time frame. Yeah, it's currently at around 25 or so. You can see where we were in 2018 and where we bottomed in 2015 on the weekly RSI. So it is going down relatively quickly. I looked at a lot of the different indicators. Some of them suggest we're near a bottom. Some of them suggest we have further to fall. Okay, so I mean, no one indicator is going to tell you the whole story. Obviously, some more aggressive indicators, more optimistic, say we've already bottomed. Some more conservative indicators say that we certainly could have more further, further to fall, especially considering we're down 70% from the all-time high, and prior bear markets have all been 80% or more. Yeah, I mean, we're still holding just above 20K right now, so we'll see if it holds 20.3. If I had to guess when the market cycle bottom will occur, when inflation peaks, probably, honestly. I mean, it's sort of irrelevant to try to guess exactly when it's going to occur. I mean, it could be at the end of this year, could be early next year. I don't fully know, but my guess is that it will likely correspond to inflation peaking year over year, is my guess. Why everyone says that Bitcoin is anti-inflationary? Well, I think as long as inflation is relatively under control and, like 2 or 3% or so, Bitcoin does relatively well. It's when inflation gets really, really bad that Bitcoin does not do well, because then people start to then price in, well, what is the Fed going to do to actually combat that inflation? All right, we're back at 20.6. We'll see what happens. Maybe this will be the fake out, right? And we'll go back the other way. We'll see. Right now we're at 20.6. Yeah, we're well off the bull market support band. I mean, like, we're not even close to it right now. In fact, if you actually look at the log of the price over the 20-week, might be interesting to see where we line up right now. We're almost as bad as 2018. Almost. In terms of the downward extension from the bull markets, from the 20-week SMA. We're almost as bad as it was in 2018, but still not quite there yet. And certainly not as bad as it was in 2011. I mean, that went a lot further down. You can see where we currently are with respect to the 20-week SMA. Also, I imagine that with respect to the 200-day SMA, I mean, we've got to be well below the 200-day. I was actually looking at that earlier. So if we actually go pull up the 200-day moving average, the current price, you can see it would have to rally 93% to get to the 200-day moving average. At this bottom in 2018, it would have had to have rallied 106% to get to the 200-day moving average at the time. Just showing you some comparisons. What is the value of the 300-week moving average? I believe it's around 16K, I think. 16,589. That's where the 300-week moving average is. That's the last time we went to there was in March of 2020. Can we have a look at the regression band? Yes. Here it is. We might have to refit it. I mean, we don't have to, but this is back in when I refitted in 2019. If you go watch my first video on it, I said that, you know, in a future cycle, whenever we come back down, we might have to refit it. I don't really think there's any reason we need to refit it right now. If we did, right now it's only fit through, you know, data up through this point. Okay, so it's fit. I'll circle more or less the data that it's fit to. Okay, so if I were to update it, I would also add in this data that sort of came later in this cycle, and then I would add the data that's coming in right now. And it might very, very slightly tweak it, but probably not a whole lot. No, I don't really look at the fibs that much. There's a lot of other channels that do. Why is Bitcoin dominance down? Probably for a number of reasons. One reason could be due to institutional selling. They're likely selling off their Bitcoin. I do think it will go back up. I don't think it's going back down to like, you know, 39, 40% or something. And then also I think the stablecoin dominance is going up. All right, guys. I think we'll wrap it up there. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. Give the video a thumbs up. Remember to check out the website intothecryptoverse.com. We do have a sale going on, so you can lock in the low rate. I think that's it. I don't really have anything else. Just sort of waiting to see if Bitcoin does anything, but we're still sitting at 20.7. There might actually be some more volatility during the meeting, actually, come to think of it. I mean, the meeting starts in, what, 12 minutes? So we might expect a decent amount of volatility during the meeting based on what Powell says. I mean, like if he says he's going to do 75 basis points next meeting, then you know that's going to make investors even more spooked again, probably. So it will be important to hear what he has to say. But I'm not going to live stream that, I don't think. All right, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe. Give the video a thumbs up. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.